Good news, everyone. There's at least some current Ducks playing hockey this month. I'll talk about that on this edition of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason J.D. Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for over a decade, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. As I just mentioned, I've covered hockey for a while. Also the PA announcer for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, which is where I will be later today. So if you're watching this Wednesday afternoon, come out to some playoff hockey. Coachella Valley Firebirds versus the Calgary Wranglers tonight, Wednesday at 7 p.m. That's Game 3. Game 4 is on Friday. Hopefully I'll be able to record an episode out there. But we got something to talk about. We've got actual sort of Ducks hockey to talk about. What do I mean? Oh, World Championships. You know, I think a lot of people forgot that the World Championships are starting this weekend. Yeah, this one kind of flew under the radar, mainly because it's not taking place in the US or it's not taking place in Canada. No, it is taking place in Czechia, which is going to be important to this podcast. The reason is because there's a certain Anaheim Duck that I think is going to possibly step up big time in this tournament. But let's talk about World Championships, not World Juniors, which passed a few months ago, but the World Championships, which normally takes place during late May anyway, but it is happening early May this year, and in fact it is happening during the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the reason that is important is because there have been a lot of roster additions over the past couple of days with certain teams getting eliminated, as I mentioned on the previous podcast, and this is how this all connects. It all connects, trust me. With certain teams getting eliminated, like, I don't know, the Los Angeles Kings getting bounced by the Edmonton Oilers again, or, you know, certain other teams that just got bounced, then it makes for an interesting, I mean, Tampa Bay getting eliminated, I think, is going to be a big key in this year's World Championships. So I'm going to start with, the former Duck, or sorry, not former Duck, a current Duck, not former anymore. That was the previous episode. Current Duck playing for Team USA. And that, of course, is Trevor Zegras, and that's where this whole segment is going to be on. It's going to be about Trevor Zegras. Now, I know that the last time I talked about Zegras, there was those quotes that came out about having to rein in certain guys. And as much as been said about Zegras, he is still one of the most talented players on this Team USA roster. He's still one of the most talented players for a lot of hockey. He is. Okay? And he's one of the cornerstones, I guess is the way to put it. Maybe cornerstones. Is that a best way to put it? But one of the important pieces for Team USA hockey this year. In fact, here is some of the roster for Team USA. Matt Boldy, Cole Caulfield, Joel Farabee, Johnny Gaudreau, Luke Kunin. Dylan Larkin was on the roster, but he is out due to injury. That's a big loss. Shane Pinto, Brady Tkachuk, and Trevor Zegras are the forwards, along with some new additions. I'll get to those in a second. You also have Luke Hughes, Seth Jones, Jake Sanderson, Alex Vlasic, Zach Werenski, and Alex Lyon. And they also just recently added Will Smith, not that Will Smith, the other Will Smith, the hockey Will Smith, that one. Ryan Leonard, Mikey Esimont, Kevin Hayes, Matthew Kessel, Brock Nelson, Michael Kesselring, Jeff Petrie, and Trey Augustine. All right, so they got Trey Augustine in net. That's not too bad. They got Alex Lyon in net. Not too bad. Goaltending, I think, is going to be not a weakness, but it's not going to be Team USA's strength either. And Trevor Zegras is one of the more dynamic forwards on this roster. I would say as far as dynamic forwards, Cole Caulfield you can never discount for Team USA. Same with Johnny Gaudreau. who did have kind of a down year. As I mentioned, losing Dylan Larkin really hurts because he's one of the speedier forwards out there. And I thought he would, hook up well with Trevor Zegras on a power play unit. But now that's not going to happen. Then you have Brady Tkachuk, who brings that certain physicality. I'll talk about physicality in a second, folks. So you need someone that's going to bruise around. You need someone that's going to get some heavy hits. And Brady Tkachuk fits that mold for Team USA. So you need that. As far as Trevor Zegras is concerned, he had a down year with the Anaheim Ducks. For a lot of the year, he wasn't at 100%. And he did finally get to full strength late in the season. We saw with later games, particularly the last 10 games of the season, Trevor Zegras was finally putting everything together. He was on a nice little point streak towards the end of the season. He was looking like the player of old and the player that we were all hoping to see this year. Health was a big factor. Now that Zegras has had about 3 weeks, or 2 weeks rather, of rest, then traveling to Czechia for World Juniors, those 2 weeks of rest seem to have helped because the Ducks did play a pre-tournament game just a couple days ago, and it wasn't even close. He got an assist on this game on a Brady Tkachuk goal. Team USA dominated, and I mean dominated, over Slovakia 6-2 in this pre-tournament. So already a lot of big expectations for Team USA. They are one of the favorites, but I don't know if they're the favorite in this year's World Championship. I honestly don't think they're the favorite, partially because they're playing in Europe, partially because there's a couple other rosters that look stacked, and I mean absolutely stacked. But if Z can garner some kind of good energy and garner those skills that we saw at the end of the season, then Team USA is going to be a tough team to beat. Once again, defeating Slovakia 6-2 in their last game. So, all right, we talked about that. What about the rest of their schedule? Well, the rest of the schedule is like this. They start Friday morning against Sweden, who I'm going to talk about in a bit. They also have Germany in their group, Slovakia in their group, France, Poland, Kazakhstan, Latvia in their group. I do think USA makes the quarterfinals. They might make the semifinals, but this is going to be a tough field to play in this year. So those are the teams in that group. All right, we're going to head to the first intermission and talk a little bit more about World Juniors on the other side. Now a brief word from Game Time, and this is specifically for you, Spider How, who says, sell me a duck call or merch or tickets. Well, you know what? Here it is just for you. I'm offering you tickets from Game Time, or rather a discount on tickets from the Game Time app, which is what I use all the time. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which is no longer happening in SoCal because the Clippers and Lakers both got bounced in the first round. So you know what? I'm going to save you money on baseball tickets because who wants to see the Angels this year? Yeah. Okay, what about the Dodgers? Maybe you're a Dodgers-Angels person, or Dodgers-Ducks person. I know there are a lot of Dodgers-Ducks folks out there. If you want to save money on those baseball tickets, then there's no better place to go than Game Time, which gives you last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. You could check out the views from those seats. The Dodgers are back in town, so you could catch the Dodgers in action. The Angels are coming back. You could see Angels action for only a few bucks. But with code LOCKEDONNHL, you could save up to $20 on your first purchase. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase, you sickos! Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're also brought to you by Indeed, and there's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed. That's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed because it's the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills. Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all, and you are much more likely to get an instant match with sponsored job search listings on Indeed. So start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Once again, that's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Now let's talk about the other teams in World Juniors. I'm going to start with talking about the other Ducks that are on certain rosters. And I'm going to start with the home team, Team Czechia. All right. So there's a couple of Ducks on this roster that I've got to talk about. Remember how I said that Team USA has a Kachuk on their roster? Yeah, they got Brady. Well, you know what? Czechia has Radko Gudas. Another big bruiser. He led the Ducks in hits this season. He led the Ducks in block shots. He led the Ducks in some key categories. And believe it or not, one of the better defensemen for the Anaheim Ducks. Even though he is a bit older, he is going to bring that veteran quality to Team Czechia. Radko Gudas has seen it all. He's been to the Stanley Cup final. He's won a cup. So you know someone with championship pedigree is going to be on that Czechia team. And Radko Gudas, I think, fits the mold for a good team. But we also got to talk about who's going to be in net for Team Czechia. Who's it going to be? This, I think, is kind of a tough one because Team Czechia, they've got 3 goalies that are vying for that spot. You have Karel Vejmelka from Arizona. You have Peter Mrazek from Chicago. And you have Lukas Dostal from your Anaheim Ducks. I think out of those 3, Vejmelka for the Coyotes has had an up and down season. He finished on a terrible, terrible streak down in the desert. And Vejmelka lately, I don't know if he's going to get the top job. So I think it's down to Peter Mrazek, the steady veteran, and Lukas Dostal, the upstart for the Ducks. Me personally, I would go Dostal 99 times out of 100. The 1 out of 100 shot, I would go Mrazek simply because he has the veteran leadership and he's seen some big games in the past. That isn't to say that Dostal hasn't seen some good action. We saw him, I guess his biggest action would be with the San Diego Gulls during their little mini playoff run, or maybe him being the most valuable player in the All-Star Classic. So Dostal has seen his share of good action. So I think it's going to come down to Dostal and Mrazek for that starting spot in Team Czechia, and they are the home team. You can never discount that home ice advantage, and we have seen it so many times in World Juniors, where that home cooking can make all the difference sometimes. So I think Czechia can go pretty far in their group. Also in their group, by the way, Austria's looking good. Canada has a strong lineup. They got Dylan Cousins. They got Andrew Mangiapane. They've got Nick Paul and Brandon Hagel, who both came from Tampa, who just lost. There's also Owen Power, Colton Parayko. Oh, and some young kid you may have heard of that the Ducks missed out on, Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard is one of the headlines of that roster, with good reason. Connor Bedard is the odds-on favorite to win the Calder Trophy this season. And he's looking to just take home the gold for the World Championship team. I mean, he took home gold in World Juniors, so there's no reason that he shouldn't be a strong player in this tournament as well. The difference is he's playing against grown men this time. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Canada does in this year's World Championship. So Austria's in there, could be okay. Canada's going to be the favorite on that group along with Czechia. Denmark, I mean, there's certain guys that didn't make it Nikolai Ehlers, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and Freddie Anderson is still playing in Carolina, so he's not going to play for Denmark. So, they're missing out on some guys that cannot make it. So it's going to be a tough road for Denmark. Great Britain, they're still in it. Finland has struggled lately. So I don't know if they're going to go far in this tournament. As far as Norway, they have Mats Zuccarello, but that's about it. Switzerland, I mean, they've got, some talent. They got Nico Hischier, which is still pretty solid. But for me, it's Czechia and Canada as the two favorites out of that group. So that's a look at some of those teams. As far as the other group, look, you've got Team USA that I've mentioned their roster, but I got to talk about Sweden for a second because there's another Duck on that roster that I haven't talked about. Actually, I didn't mention Olin Zellweger also on that Team Canada roster. Defense looking good for Canada, offense looking good for Canada. But let's talk about Team Sweden, who I personally would consider among the favorites, and they're kind of my dark horse to win it all. So apologies to Ducks fans that are rooting for Dostal. Apologies to, USA, and Zegers on the team. But honestly, let me tell you this roster for Team Sweden, they added a bunch of guys. They added big. As of right now, they've got on defense, Jonas Brodin, Rasmus Dahlin, Marcus Pedersen, Lucas Bengtsson, Erik Karlsson, Tim Heed, and Victor Hedman. Oh my God, that's a lineup. Then your forwards, Adrian Kempe, oh no. Max Freeberg, Joel Eriksson Ek, Felix Unger Sorum, Marcus Sorensen, holy crap. Lucas Raymond is on this team, good lord. Pontus Holmberg, Isaac Lundestrom, oh boy. Fabian Zetterlund, Linus Johansson, Victor Olofsson, Jesper Froden, former Coachella Valley Firebird, Frodes made it. Marcus Johansson, Carl Grunstrom, with the Kings being out, Andre Burakovsky. Then your goaltenders. This is a big difference. Jesper Wallstedt, Samuel Ersson, and Philip Gustafsson. That's a strong lineup, and honestly, I would be kind of afraid to see this roster if I'm any other team. They've got very good talent on the NHL and AHL level. This is the kind of team that can mix youth and veteran leadership, and they're kind of my dark horse. I wouldn't be surprised if Team Sweden goes all the way. So my favorites this year, Czechia, Canada, Sweden, and the US. So that's a quick look at the World Juniors. All right, we're going to wrap it up after this second intermission. Stay locked in. Now a brief word from Monopoly Go. Yes, I know you're all sick of me talking about Monopoly Go, but you know what? There's so much great stuff in this game because there's times tournaments. You could work with your friends to build up other boards. You could unlock some awesome prizes. There's also unique stickers to, complete albums for big prizes. Awesome playing pieces that you could travel to different locales with. And Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. Mini games like, timed events where you can dig for treasure or play in a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new events every day to help you win big. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, we're going to wrap this one up quickly because I got to get going. As I mentioned, the Firebirds are playing the Calgary Wranglers, Game 3 in that series tonight. I mentioned all of those players. With all those additions that just took place for World Juniors, I still think Sweden is going to be very, very strong in this tournament, but that's me personally. Also on that group with USA and Sweden, you have Team France. They might make some noise. Germany always makes some noise in these World Championships. So don't be surprised if they kind of sneak up and give USA or Sweden a hard time. Then you have Kazakhstan, Latvia. They can be surprising. You never know with Latvia. Then you have Poland and Slovakia rounding out those teams. So that's something to keep an eye on. World Juniors begin in a couple of days. It's coming up pretty fast. The first game of the entire tournament is really setting off, in about less than 48 hours. Switzerland versus Norway. That's going to be the first game. That's at 7 a.m. You also have Slovakia and Germany. Around noonish, you have Czechia versus Finland and Sweden versus USA. That game, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to watch a whole lot of it because I'll be on the road to Coachella Valley. So I'll be trying to follow that one as closely as possible. But Sweden, USA, that's going to be a big test for the Americans early in this tournament. That's going to be around noontime. Those games will be on NHL Network, so do check that out. Just one other odd and end I want to get to. I'm hoping to have John Broadbent. He wanted to come on the podcast last week, but he couldn't. And also, if you haven't already, check out a previous podcast with the voice of the the radio voice of the San Diego Gulls, Aaron Cooney. We broke down the Gulls season, talked about some players that Ducks fans should be excited about. So just a reminder that you could check out previous podcasts. And the one with Aaron Cooney is a good one, so do check that one out as well. As I mentioned, hopefully we will have a podcast from Acrisure Arena, depending on circumstances and depending on what happens. So, keep your eyes peeled for that as well. All right, we're just going to wrap it up here. And just want to thank you all for your continued support. Also, the mailbag is going to be open. So I'm actually going to do this today. I'm going to put out a tweet. Send in your questions. Send in whatever you want to, just talk about. Talk about hockey. Or talk about just life in general. Whatever questions you have, send them my way. You can send them via Twitter. My personal Twitter's at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks because I still call it Twitter. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. And also you can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, ad-free on Amazon. We're also on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to check out the Locked On Sports Today channel, a 24/7 fast TV channel. You can find that on, I think, the Fire Stick, so check that out. I think that's pretty much it. Once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason J.D. Hernandez saying have a great rest of the afternoon. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.